Good morning, my friends. How are you today on this Easter Sunday? We're here April 1st, 2018, and I hope you all woke up with this feeling of that something is special this day. Something has happened that brought us the certainty of the afterlife a few thousand years ago. Anyway, today's topic is going to be about vices and addictions. Every morning we bring to you, every Sunday morning at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, so that's New York time, New Jersey. We bring a topic and we just talk a little bit about it. It makes us reflect perhaps on that topic for the week. And today's topic, even though we know it's Easter and we could be talking about different things as far as Easter goes, we're not going to change the pre-arranged topic because usually it's one of you who sends in the suggestion. And when someone sends me a suggestion of a topic, it means that I should really not ignore that. Anyway, addictions and vices. First of all, it's a very difficult topic to speak about because whoever speaks about it could come out as in a judgmental manner. So I want to, from the get-go, apologize for anything that I say. I'm not an expert on drug and addictions. I am just speaking from the spiritual side. So there are a few things that we'll bring as far as facts, as far as research. But for the most part, we have to know that it's such a complex topic that still all the experts disagree. So when you have experts disagree, you know that it's very complex. Anyway, why do people get addicted to things? Why are people suffering so much when they go into this path of addiction? And do they have a choice? Why do some people get addicted and others don't? These are questions that a lot of people are bothered by it. In the case of drugs, alcohol, we always think that those are the things we're talking about when we talk about addictions and vices. But it goes a lot beyond that. A vice is anything that's harmful. It's something that is really taking you away from the narrow path, let's say it that way, and something that becomes uncontrollable. The experts usually say that when we repeatedly do an act, and if you do this for 3 months, if you pick anything you want to do, and if you do this every day, a few hours a day, for about 3 months, that begins to be you. You begin to really become that. It's just like exercise, dieting. We always say that the first few weeks are the toughest ones, and that's why people don't adhere because it's so tough in the beginning. But when they really want something, they start doing and doing and doing, and it becomes easier, and then it becomes a lifestyle. Well, with vices, it kind of works in the contrary of the wish, because most people succumb to a vice or an addiction voluntarily. Most people, the first time that they try anything that is not good for them, they don't have a physical addiction to it. They usually do it voluntarily, but a lot of times it's with peer pressure. A lot of times it's because of something traumatic happened and they're trying to numb that experience. And then from that point, it becomes a necessity, and it becomes a need for the body and a need for them. And again, not truly a need, but let's say it becomes a type of drug that they hide their true self behind. So that is the difference a lot of times on how I can be who I want to be by practicing and doing the same thing over and over, or something that is the contrary. You begin doing over and over to hide inner pain. Joanna de Angelis, one of the mentors for Divaldo Franco, but again, she's such an amazing a spirit. She comes in one of the books that she writes through Divaldo Franco. She talks about what really is a vice, why people really get addicted. Why do people do the things they do? And again, vices are not, and addictions is not just drug and alcohol. That's what I wanted to make sure. Gossip is an addiction. Some people are addicted to speaking ill of others. Some people are addicted to food. Some people are addicted to the internet, to a certain show on TV. Anything that is, you have that feeling that is so powerful that takes you away from your normal path becomes an addiction. Anything that you almost, it's so powerful that takes you away from your kids, from your family, from good things that you want to be doing. So addiction does not necessarily mean, oh, it's to a thing, it's to a palpable thing. It could be to a habit. A lot of people get addicted to yelling. They start yelling and yelling at people or cursing, and they get addicted to that. They enjoy it in a way, let's say it that way. Because in all truthful, nobody really enjoys anything that harms them. It can for a while make your senses happy, but we all know that the after effect is not a pleasant thing. If it was, then people wouldn't need to keep doing it. So again, Joanna de Angelis will say that all addictions and vices comes from an inner emptiness. It's truly a psychological escape. It's a place where we want to numb something that has happened to us that we don't want to think about, or a person that you don't want to be. So a lot of times we are running away from ourselves. We are running away from our problems. We're running away from anything we don't want to deal with. Our shadows, our imperfections, all the things that somehow got planted in our minds that we are not worthy of anything, or we don't have a good appearance or anything. And we want to, those things get thrown into our minds, maybe in our childhood, and it becomes our shadows. We begin to automatically believe these things. That's part of it. But when we don't feel comfortable with ourselves, when we start to really look at ourselves and want to run away from the person we are, Joanna will say that that's when we become a target for anything that could numb that feeling. So the psychological escape from pain will lead us to a lot of things that become harmful to us. Why? Because we usually will seek something to numb our senses. We will need something to, let's say in the case of alcohol, a person who's shy most of the time can't really become part of a group. They don't want to talk, they don't know what to say, they feel nervous, anxious, and they'll take alcohol and your inhibitions will lessen. And they'll become more happy, they'll become more talkative, they'll be sometimes the life of the party, and that brings a good, something good in a way. And they don't want to be that person anymore, that shy person anymore. But if we really find the meaning, and remember this phrase, folks, because it's really important. If we find the meaning of the behavior, we'll find an intervention. Every time that we behave in a certain way, every time a shy person needs alcohol to become the life of the party, what is the motive? What is the meaning of what they're doing? If the meaning is, I don't want to be the shy person, and we start to dig a little deeper, why don't you want to be shy, and why are you shy? Why does that bother you? And that is why it's so important, because again, it goes with what Joanna tells us. It's a psychological escape. Something brought pain to this person about being shy, or something that has caused maybe perhaps a traumatic experience, and they don't want that anymore. So they need something to make them a different person. And the problem with that is that even in Andre Luis has a book called Sex and Destiny. And part of this book, there's a chapter that talks about this man who has an alcohol addiction. And in the book, it's very descriptive how the spirits actually, they kind of like embrace him and actually enhances his wish for alcohol. So if you think about it, we talk about obsessions. Nobody will be obsessed unless there is the right plug for obsession. So when we do something that, let's say the spirits can't really drink in a physical form, right? So but they can get the energy of the alcohol. They can smell, they can really feel nourished if they're close enough to someone who does it. So that's how we call a lot of times these spirits that are still going through their own issues, their own addiction in the spirit world. So that is the spiritual part. When Andre Luis described this man who had just finished his day of work, so he comes home and he sits down on his couch and he grabs the paper and nothing seems to satisfy him. And he just had a tough day and he's thinking about things. And eventually he sees his little bar in his living room and he sees his whiskey just sitting there. And all of a sudden he feels this urge to maybe I'll have a shot of whiskey, it'll help me relax. And at this time in the book, the spirit comes and he kind of influences, he kind of whispers in his ear, yeah, go for it, go for it. And this man starts to feel more and more in need of that drug. You see, he already had the want for it, but it got enhanced by the spirits. And it got to the way that they actually embraced him and they actually helped him. Every time that he had a drink, the spirit also had a drink in a fluidic way, in an energetic way. So at the end of it, he had drank just pretty much the whole bottle. And this would happen over and over and over. So it became a symbiotic, energetic, tie between this man and this spirit. So it's very interesting because we never drink alone, we never smoke alone, we never eat alone, everything that we do in excess is not a healthy thing. So we have here Joana de Angelis, we have Andre Luis, narrating very different things that we learn in a regular school about addiction. We have Joana saying that it's a psychological escape, and that in a lot of psychological ways we have learned that in school, that yes, it's filling an emptiness. Most of the time people that overeat, they're usually trying to fill an emptiness, something, a lot of times depression. And most of the drug addictions, most of the addictions, period, has to do with sometime the person is usually has in some level depression. There is some kind of running away from themselves and the person before they initiate any kind of self-loathing action, self-harming action, self-mutilating action. There is usually something that has to do with depression. Anxiety as well, but depression is really high up there. So that brings us to a point. Do we judge whoever does what they do? First of all, a lot of people like to say, oh, that person, they could just quit that. Why do they drink too much? Why don't they just quit? Why does this person eat, and when is enough enough? Well, when we stop judging and when we start to have compassion, remember last week's Morning Coffee for the Soul, we talked about empathy, to be able to understand somebody else's view, to be able to put yourself in their shoes. We don't know somebody's history. We don't know their spiritual history. A lot of people come in this life with already, they're already, let's say, they're more prone to addictions because they already had those addictions in previous lives. So in studies, in scientific studies today, we see that 50% of influences of addictions has to do with the biological state, people that are born prone to things. Now, with Spiritism, we learned that it's not really genes, but it's previous life experiences that will make you who you are. So if you had an addiction for so many lives, so many years of your life, even before you were born, that doesn't just disappear out of the blues. It's something that has to be worked. Why? Because it's not the addiction itself. It's again, a psychological escape. What are you trying to numb yourself from? What are you trying to run away from? And again, that phrase, when we find the meaning of a behavior, we'll find an intervention. So when we find why people do what they do, that's when we can take place in a healing, take place in fixing what doesn't work. Now, of course, in a practical sense, what do? Well, first of all, we keep triggers away. Remember that man with Andre Luis's story that I just told you guys? Well, if he did not have the alcohol close by, his chances for taking that first drink would have been lessened, correct? So it's always good to see what are we attracted so powerfully that we almost can't resist. And we all have something. We all have things in us that we should admit. Most people like to hide it, and that's the problem. But some people are addicted to sex. Some people are addicted to, again, food, to gossiping, to speaking ill of others. Some people are addicted to video games. And we see now more and more different types of technological related addictions. But we all have something that we are trying to work on, something that seems irresistible to us. And we know that the closest it is to us, the harder it is to resist. So again, when we talk about vices and addictions, of course it's very smart to keep away as far as you can. Don't have it in your home. And again, speak with someone about it. Seek help. Of course, go out and look for any kind of doctor help, psychological help. But if we know that it's the psychological, but the spiritual connection is so high, and when speaking with addictions, then we have to understand, where do I come from? We have to study more this doctrine. We have to study more spiritism to help us even understand why I do the things I do, and how can I stop doing the things I don't want to do. I want to leave you guys with one question from the Spirit's book. Because a lot of times we say, am I weak? Can I resist the vices that I know I have? Is it my body? And we know, of course, the brain actually changes shape. The brain actually changes with certain drugs that you do, with certain behaviors that you do. It actually will change the way it works and even the way it looks. But because it physically changes. But can we stop it? Are we doomed? Is it only rehab that's going to work? And why doesn't it work in all cases? From question 909 in the Spirit's book, and I'm going to read it, okay, just for us to understand a little bit that we are more empowered than we think we are. The question is, would a man's own efforts always suffice to enable him to vanquish his evil tendencies? And when Kardec asks here evil tendencies, it could be vices, it could be anything, any tendency to do something contrary to God's laws, to what is good for him. So, again, do his own efforts, is it enough? Like, what is it something that is doable? And the spirits will answer, yes, very slight ones are often all that is needed. It is the will that is wanting. So, alas, how few of you make any serious efforts to vanquish those tendencies? Now, we see this and we say, whoa, whoever answered that is, and you have to read the Spirit's book. But question 909, when Kardec asks, are we doomed? Is it, just you? Can you stop doing the things you want to stop, or your evil tendencies? And we call those tendencies, those, again, things that kind of draw me to. Is it enough for me to, can I do it? And the spirits will say yes. They actually say the first word is yes. And they answer that with very slight modifications, doing very little things. You can change all the tendencies you have to do something that's harmful. But a lot of times they answer, it's the will that lacks. Sometimes we get so comfortable in that place that we actually don't want the help. And I've met so many people that I asked, what, does this work for you? And people that are addicted to cheating on their other halves. And then they feel horrible about it, but then they do it again. It's almost like a kind of, it's an impulse, they say. But when I say, well, if you could only be with your husband or wife for the rest of your life, would you do it? And then their answer is usually, I don't know if I want to change that way. So that's why it's so important when we say, do you want to change? Do you want this gone? And we're saying we don't want the product that's numbing whatever pain you're in gone. That's what we want gone. But do you want help? Have you looked into yourself and said, I can point out to the reason why I behave this way? So the spirits are answering, if you have the will to really change how harmful you are being to yourself, then you can do it doing very little things. This is really liberating. This is really something that frees us from thinking that drugs are more powerful than our will. And I'm not saying, folks, that, oh, all you have to do is stop. It's something a little more complex. Of course it is. Because once our body needs something, of course we need to get all the help we need. And we should. The thing is, do we want? And again, it's not me. It's not Debora saying this. Excuse me. This is on question number 909 on the Spirit's book. So all that we are lacking is the will to do a lot of things that are good for us. Again, let's really reflect then this week. What doesn't work for me anymore? What am I hiding from my own self? What am I trying to hide? Am I not happy being who I am? That I have to use something or that I have to resort to something that is really not good, but it's numbing that pain? So if I find out what it is, if I really, again, do that self-contemplation and really try to find out the whys of my behavior in a sincere way, it could be you with you, or it could be you with a therapist, but truly look inside of you and find out, why do I behave the way I behave when I don't want to behave that way? Again, we all can do it, and that's so consoling to know, because at any point, we can choose to change our lives, to really say, I need to change whatever the way I react to the pain that I'm experiencing. Again, Joanna de Angelis is very clear to say it's a psychological escape, but we know we can't escape anything. Until we deal with our problems face to face, until we are sincere with ourselves and apologize for the things we're not doing right, and to ourselves and say, I am not going to keep going this path. I'm going to love myself so much more that I'm going to seek help. And the spirits say, all you need to do is want it. And there are truly then no evil tendencies. Of course, there are things that try to influence us, or things from past lives that are not well resolved, but the influences, for the most part, we kind of go with the flow. So when we say, I want to stop, it's not going to be the big things that are going to be challenging. And with very little changes in behavior, very little changes, we can accomplish it. And that's the message for this week, for us to know that no matter what your vice is, your addiction is, any tendencies that you don't enjoy, anything that you know draws you to doing that, something that you truly know is not good for you, you can, with your will, with help, stop it and redirect to a good channel. All you need to do is really do not escape from whatever pain you're in, and really face it in a sincere way, knowing that you can overcome. For you to overcome anything, you have to understand it. You have to make peace with it. And nobody says that there are no terrible things. There are no traumatic experience. Again, we've talked about traumas as well. But until we forgive and until we make peace within ourselves, we can't even understand it. And if we can't understand, we can't overcome. And if we can't overcome, we're going to try to escape. When we try to escape, we're going to find things or situations or habits, that they will become habits, to numb these things. So I am very happy to be here. I see Ivone Medeiros is saying good morning. Good morning, my dear. I will leave you here on this Easter Sunday with all my love. Let's take this day to reflect on this amazing day where Christ made himself known to all that he does exist, and he keeps on living, and we all will keep on living. And let's not look at ourselves ever as a final product. We are a product in the works. And for us to know that although this is my best version of all the previous versions of Debora, there are so many possibilities, and there are going to be so many chances for me to perfect myself. We are not perfect, but we are perfectibles, perfectible people. And one day we'll get to a point where all these vices, all these tendencies, all of these will be such a thing of the past. And we'll be truly at peace, truly in love with ourselves. Let's start that today. I wish you an amazing Sunday, a happy morning, a happy week, and let's all reflect on this. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much, my friends. And again, we'll be here next Sunday at 8:30. If you have any topics of interest, you can always look me up on Facebook. And don't forget to watch Kardec Radio, kardec.com. There are podcasts there as well, on demand. And now we have the app as well. So don't forget to have the Kardec Radio right there on your phone. There's a lot of great shows. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful Sunday.